first of all, I would acknowledge the different agencies that support the traveling and accommodation for myself and for the people working with me at this issue. And I would remind to you all that we work on this issue because invasive species are a major problem for biodiversity. They are probably the major driver of extinctions, at least for animal species, and that's an area, of course, it is a priority for protected areas to deal with. One extinction out of 2 has been also caused by invasive species, and probably 1 out of 5 among animal extinctions have been caused by invasive species. For this reason, we have a lot of decisions and a lot of statements that call us all to work on this issue. I remind you that the previous Park Congress stated that protected areas need to improve the management of invasive species as a priority. And I also would like to recall you that it is not only we have one Aichi target, one point of the strategic plan of the CBD calling us to work on priority species and priority paths of introduction, but there are many other targets that are involved, from the target 11 asking to improve the efficacy of protected areas, to the target to reduce extinctions, to the target to protect coral reefs that are also affected by invasive species. So dealing with invasive species can help meeting a lot of different objectives that we have for preserving our biodiversity. And unfortunately, what we know from the data that we have compiled over the years is that this threat is constantly growing and increasing. In GBO3, in the Global Biodiversity Outlook of 2010, we realized that the number of invasive species had grown at that time of 76% in about 30 years. But unfortunately, the new data that we compiled for the GBO4 seem to confirm that this trend has not slowed down. So we need to be more effective in our struggles to reduce the rate of invasions globally. And I just picked up a couple of graphs from the documentation that have been presented in this Congress. For example, the state of conservation in Oceania, where you can see that invasive species come first as a pressure for that region of the world, because of course islands are particularly vulnerable to invasions, and many islands around the world are protected areas. Or this is the World Heritage Outlook 2014 that has been presented a couple of days ago, and among the current threats affecting World Heritage sites, you will see that invasive species are one of the major problems. So what can protected areas do for reducing this threat? There are many areas of work where protected areas can and should play a major role. Partly, of course, in managing more effectively invasive species. I grabbed the pictures from several people in the room, so I hope you don't mind. Alan probably recognized some his ones. So managing invasive species more effectively in protected areas, but we shouldn't restrict our scope to this particular activity. Protected areas can be catalysts of action. They can engage with local communities. They can be particularly effective in raising awareness and working even beyond the territory of the protected areas to increase the involvement of people and awareness raising on this threat. They can be sentinels of invasions. Very often we all know that responding to invasions at a very early stage is much more effective than waiting until a species establishes and spread. And very often protected areas have the ability, the capacity to detect the species, to identify them, and also to combat them, and so enhancing a rapid response. They can be laboratories for developing science-based innovative solutions to the problem of invasive species. And there is another area of activity that is particularly important, that is data sharing. Protected areas can improve our understanding of the patterns of establishment and spread of invasive species. They can help us sharing information on how to manage them. So this is an area where we are working together with the Convention on Biological Diversity to improve the access to key information for all practitioners. So the works of today will be structured in 3 segments, split in these 2 parts of the session. So we will hear several case studies on the management of biological invasions in protected areas around the world. We will have presentations on how to engage communities and the civil society in the action against invasive species. And there will be a panel discussion on these guidelines that we are drafting, IUCN Global Guidelines for the Management of Invasive Alien Species in Protected Areas. You may have seen a poster that we put up at the entrance of the room that is to present this volume that is going to be published next year. And I invite you all, for those that can stay for the entire length of the session, to contribute to this work, because we need inputs, we need examples, we need best practice cases to feed into this discussion.